what makes you attracted to somebody? And it's usually their generosity in terms of their generosity with their time, their generosity with their money, or their generosity with their knowledge. And so the last part is what you all should focus on if you're going to get started in trying to get investors through your door, is generosity with your knowledge. You should be sharing what you know. And if you don't know anything and you're really just starting out, ask thoughtful questions. I can tell you right now, your name recognition when you're on places like Bigger Pockets or other LinkedIn groups or Facebook groups or what have you, and you're just participating and providing value, that is what's going to build up, brand recognition. So that's how you're going to get investors, is go out there, talk about things.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to Weiss Advice. I am your host, Yona Weiss. It is a beautiful day, and I'm so happy that you joined me today. And I am very fortunate to have with us Jillian Sidoti, an incredible attorney who is going to, share with us a little bit so we can understand what it's like to be, one of the most famous crowdfunding attorneys in the world.
Oh, wow. That's a lot to live up to. So, but thanks for that awesome introduction.
If you weren't until now, you are now. So that's true.
All because of this podcast. That's awesome. Thank you for having me. I love these types of interviews where you just have fun and kind of
right. That's what we do.
Let it go.
That's what I do all day anyways, like whatever I do. So might as well turn it into a podcast also. That's what I figured.
Yeah, no kidding.
So she is actually a partner in Crowdfunding Lawyers LLP, also in Jillian Sidoti LLP, which is obviously a crowdfunding legal firm based in Los Angeles, or somewhere in the Los Angeles area. I know.
Southern California, a little lower than Los Angeles, but yeah, we're south of Los Angeles.
If you tell people like Southern California, LA, it's like, LA is the size of is bigger than most countries in the world. So. I grew up in Los Angeles also, but it takes from where I grew up in the Valley to LA, it takes an hour and a half in the car. So it's you live in the same city, but it could be literally a different country.
Where were you? Were you in Glendale?
In Woodland Hills, so West Valley, far out.
Oh, yeah. Woodland Hills is great.
So take a minute or two and introduce yourself, because I think you would do a much better job than I would.
Yeah, so, like you said, I'm a world famous attorney. I'm actually, I started off in real estate development. I did ground up development and condo conversions and multifamily investing. And I went from that to actually doing what I do now, which is helping real estate entrepreneurs figure out how to raise money for their deals. But more importantly, I'm a mama of 3 boys, and I really enjoy what I do because I feel like I'm helping entrepreneurs. If you had to pick an area of law to practice, this probably would be it, because it's just usually it's really good days. It's people who are trying to grow their business, and I get to help them grow that business.
Absolutely. And I feel the same way. I have the pleasure of meeting with people and helping people in the real estate industry all day, every day. And it just, in my experience, just the people are just amazing people in general. The community is amazing.
Yeah.
And like you said, there are a lot of people who are they're entrepreneurs. So they're always in the growth mindset type of people. So it's great to surround yourself with those type of people.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So that transition from real estate development into, being an attorney and the crowdfunding has helped you out, obviously take on that kind of more niche specialized area. And obviously it's best to be a specialized, anything, right? Mm-hmm. What was the hardest step for you in transitioning into that?
It's funny because I never wanted to really be a lawyer. my goal was always to be an entrepreneur of some sort. And I kind of just went to law school because it was something to do. And that may sound really ridiculous, but that's totally the truth. I didn't want to get a real job, so I went to law school. I got into law school. I didn't really like the people I was in school with. I'm a competitive person, but this was beyond competitive. This was more like just, people killing each other in an educational environment. And that did not sit well with me, but I got through it. I finished it up. And then I decided to go into real estate development. And that lasted through 2006 to the beginning of 2007 when the market started crashing, and we just got rid of all of our properties. And at that time, the natural transition was like, well, I should probably put this law degree that I got to work.
Right.
And that's how I did it. So
that makes sense. No, absolutely. That totally makes sense. But you're still, to this day, you're still investing in real estate. So you still have that.
Of course. Yeah, you have to. Like right now I trade my time for money, right? And if I want to have more time, then I have to find other means of cash flow. And one of the best ways to find other means of cash flow, of course, is through real estate and wealth building too. It's not just the cash flow. It's also, I'm really in a wealth building mode right now, right? Because I'm in my early 40s. I have cash flow from the law firm, so I don't necessarily need cash flow right now. So I'm more of a wealth building stage. So yeah, I still regularly invest in all different types of real estate. And I have ever since I got out of law school.
Gotcha. And you're, talking about all different types of real estate. You've had the pleasure of working with many entrepreneurs and many real estate investors. Do you invest with any of your clients specifically?
No, I try not to because, off the record, right? No, I don't, because there has been, I will talk about one or two occasions where I have invested with a client outside of my role as an attorney, and they were very, very limited circumstances for very specific reasons. But I don't, because I feel like it's a huge conflict of interest in terms of I'm representing the client. And yes, I've missed out on a ton of amazing deals because of it. But that's just kind of the price you pay to be the lawyer. So I often try to look for deals outside of what I've represented. But one such example where I invested with a client was, I'll actually even name the client, as a woman by the name of Kathy Fettke, who does all kinds of different real estate investing. And the reason why I invested with her on a particular deal that I happened to write was because my aunt had expressed interest in investing in Reno, Nevada specifically. She said, I think Reno, Nevada is a hot spot and I want to get in there. And I had just written this offer for Kathy for a development project in Reno. And so I told my aunt, who is an accredited investor but did not have a lot of experience in investing in real estate, and I said to her, well, I think I have an opportunity that makes sense. Why don't you take a look at it? And she did. And she expressed some level of nervousness about doing this for the first time ever, And so my deal with her was, well, I'll match your investment and I'll invest with you so that we're both taking on the same risk. So that's one such situation. So if you guys want me to invest in your deals and you're my client, you got to get my aunt to invest. And then
But with all transparency, you're probably making more as the attorney than you would as the investor anyways.
That's very true. Very true.
Oh, man. But to me, having an attorney for your deal is probably one of the most fundamental parts of being successful in that deal, which can really make or break a deal. Having the right attorney and having the right paperwork, especially if you're doing something like a lot of your clients syndications are doing, crowdfunding and all the different types of filings according to the SEC that there are. So
it's funny you say that, because a lot of times I'll write something that looks really scary, like you're going to lose all your money and everything's going to go to hell in a handbasket. And people will read that and go, who's going to invest in this? This just tells you how the world's going to blow up. And truth be told, that type of paperwork usually entices people to invest, because they go, well, if they're willing to tell me all these terrible things are going to happen, I can trust that they're going to do the right thing, So it actually works in reverse a lot of times. And that's a really positive thing. So yeah, I think, and the other thing is too, one thing I've noticed, especially pre-COVID, was there was a lot of very rushed to the market type of offerings, and a lot of sloppy legal work. So you really want to make sure that you have a lawyer that not only that you have a lawyer, but one that knows what they're doing, because I saw a lot of sloppy offerings out there. I had to at one point just say to everybody in my office, we don't review other people's work anymore because this isn't going well. Because then we just look like jerks, like we're just critical of everybody. And I don't want to look like a jerk to anyone. So we just don't do it.
I mean, obviously everyone has their different styles, but
oh, of course,
but you're probably doing things in the most regulated way that you see fit. So
yeah, exactly.
Now, speaking of doing things in the regular way, I told you I was going to mention this before, but you work with Grant Cardone. And he's probably brought the crowdfunding and syndication of real estate to the forefront of the world just because of his media presence.
Right.
And what is that like, working with someone who is such, and I've met him, but he's just a dominating type personality. What's that like being the attorney where you really kind of have to have that kind of dominating role in a sense?
This is going to sound funny. Fortunately, I talk to Grant only on certain occasions, and usually that's holidays, because he wants everybody working on holidays. So, he'll call me on like Memorial Day, Labor Day, 4th of July. Those are the days he usually calls me. But with that being said, I work with his team for the most part. His CFO, his COO, his general counsel are the people I regularly speak with. And we kind of have to have a team mentality when it comes to dealing with what Grant wants to do and what he wants to put out there, because he's a master marketer and he wants to say whatever he wants to say. And sometimes you've got to pull back those reins. As a lawyer, you got to just say, no. And oftentimes he is like the one thing, whether you love or hate Grant Cardone,
it's one or the other.
He is exactly who he says he is. Yeah, he's exactly the way he is online, and the way he presents himself to people outwardly is the same exact way he is inwardly. So, like, I see that phone ring and it's Grant Cardone, I know I'm in for an argument, not one where he's yelling at me or anything like that. He just wants to get his way. And he wants me to tell him the law is different. And so you just calmly repeat it over and over and say, these are the reasons why, and this is what you have to do. And I appreciate it because it challenges me from a perspective of keeping my skills sharp, number one. And number two, it makes me think outside of the box and try to find solutions for him. And that's why I was hired by him in the first place, was because I was willing to look for solutions to problems, as opposed to just saying, no, you can't do that. Instead, it's, okay, let's figure out how we can work not around the law or bend the law, but within the law and get accomplished what you want to get accomplished. Because there's only 3 organizations that I'm concerned that you should be scared of, and that's the SEC, the FBI, and the IRS.
Okay, well, and in some cases, doing the wrong thing in a real estate syndication can actually get you in trouble with all 3 simultaneously.
All 3 of them. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And they each have each other on speed dial. So just keep that in mind.
What's your favorite part about being a crowdfunding attorney?
Oh, hearing new ideas. Just besides real estate, I get to be involved in some really amazing ventures that are not real estate related or new ideas. Honestly, just using Grant Cardone as an example, he was exciting because he was giving people who always wanted to invest with him, who never could, the opportunity to invest right alongside him in Class A apartment buildings. And, even my biggest apartment builder clients can't independently get into the buildings that Grant Cardone is getting into, right? Or the opportunities. I mean, he's buying $100 million buildings. Right. Not a lot of people can do that. And he's used the power of the crowd and allowed, mom and pop investors get into those types of opportunities, which I think is really, a lot. And then another exciting one I'm working on right now, I just finished it and it's about to be launched, is called the Own Our Own Fund, which is a fund created by David Gross, who was, there is a rapper named Nipsey Hussle who was shot and killed in his property. He was a big investor in the more downtrodden neighborhoods around the country, Southside Chicago, Inglewood, California, etc. And he had a retail strip mall in Inglewood, and he was in one of his stores one night and was shot. I don't know if it was gang violence or what have you, but he was shot. And so David Gross, who's my client, was his business partner in those matters and is carrying on his legacy of trying to build up neighborhoods like this by investing in those properties and bringing the community in, and not so much the community itself, because the community itself can't necessarily afford to invest in itself, but bringing people who came from those communities to invest into those communities. That's really exciting. And then outside of real estate, I have a client who's trying to 3D print a heart. Wow. I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing stuff. So just getting to hear and be a part of these ideas is really quite amazing.
Wow. Yeah, that certainly is. What would be and this is something I hear a lot, I spend a lot of time on social media. I know a lot of people do, and we're constantly being bombarded by advertising and all kinds of stuff like that. Now, obviously, one of the most important things that people need to know and understand about running a real estate syndication is that there are laws of how you can go about advertising or trying to get new investors.
Right.
Obviously, we can't touch on all the points or even a couple of them, but maybe just one thing, like what was the best advice for someone who's starting out? Like, what would be your number one advice for them in approaching that?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing you really want to think about is like, what makes you attracted to somebody? And it's usually their generosity in terms of their generosity with their time, their generosity with their money, or their generosity with their knowledge. And so the last part is what you all should focus on if you're going to get started in trying to get investors through your door, is generosity with your knowledge. If you're a real estate entrepreneur and you know about real estate, then you should be sharing what you know. And if you have advice for somebody on something, share what you know. And if you don't know anything and you're really just starting out, ask thoughtful questions. Keep the conversation going. I can tell you right now, your name recognition when you're on places like Bigger Pockets or other real estate event LinkedIn groups or Facebook groups or what have you, and you're just participating and providing value, that is what's going to build up, brand recognition. You're your brand. So like, me, my brand, because I'm out there, and that's how, and believe it or not, that's how Grant Cardone found us. He found us on the internet. I didn't call him. He didn't ask a buddy for a recommendation. They literally found us on the internet and saw me talking about Regulation A, and then went and read some of my files, and that's how they called us. So, that's how you're going to get investors, is go out there, talk about things. That's how you get clients,
sure,
right, Yona?
I mean, people find me because I put myself out there. I'm in social media.
Right.
Like if you look on LinkedIn or Facebook for cost segregation, I'm probably the first name.
There's one guy that shows up. Yeah.
And it's because
absolutely.
Right, exactly right. Because I show up and I'm the consistency and just out there providing value, and not necessarily even related to cost segregation, because adding value to people aligns them with you as a person. And by doing that, they will come to know you. And that's the first step in coming to, potentially work with you, is even knowing who you are and knowing what you do. So a big part of it.
Absolutely. People like to have a face and a personality. And when you have these, like we're doing we went towards this trend of like anonymous, type of corporation company presences online, and it's turned out, well, that doesn't work. And like, look at the most successful ones. Grant Cardone is one of the more successful ones, but even Realty Mogul, Jillian Hellman has been the CEO of Realty Mogul. She's a founder of Realty Mogul. You know who she is, you know what she's like, she's, forgive me, Jillian, for saying this, but you're a tough broad, and everybody knows her as that. And she takes no prisoners and does her thing. And that's part of the charm of Realty Mogul is Jillian Hellman, so I think, you have to have a personality regardless of what your personality might be.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely. And people are going to relate to that. Whoever you are, they're going to relate. The people that are going to relate to are going to relate to you, no matter who you are or what you do.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's incredible. Hey, before we get to the final four, I just want to tell you about Streamlined Podcasts. Okay. I could not have a podcast if I didn't work with Streamlined Podcasts. As simple as that. These guys are my go-to. They do all the editing of these audio pieces that you guys are hearing. And I really couldn't do anything without it. I literally tried to start a podcast for about a year, and it was just daunting to me to spend time writing show notes, to do the audio recording, editing, taking out the ums, the ahs, the spaces, everything. These guys make it sound so crisp, so clear at such an affordable rate. And for my listeners and my listeners only, you're gonna be thrilled. If you're ever thinking of starting a podcast or you have a podcast, check them out at streamlinedpodcasts.com. Set up a time to speak with them and use promo code WEISS, WEISS, and you can get 20% off your first month if you do end up signing up with them. I guarantee you it's going to be worth your while. We're just going to jump into the final four, if that's right.
Okay.
We got some great questions, and I think love to hear your answers on them. So the first question I always ask people is, what is the worst job that you ever had?
Okay. I had a job that I really wanted to have, and then I totally wish I didn't have it, which is I was an accountant at Liberty Mutual Insurance Company. And it was the first day on the job. I went to Human Resources, and then I left Human Resources and went up to where my new job was. And my boss, who had interviewed me, who had hired me and was now going to train me, calls myself and another accountant into her office. Now it's 10 o'clock in the morning. I've only been there for an hour, and says to me, effective immediately, I will be taking a leave of absence due to work-related stress. And that should have been my first sign. Because it went after that. And yeah, that was rough
You can't
job.
make that stuff up.
No.
That's hilarious.
No.
Oh, wow. So you had a background in accountancy also. And so yeah, that's pretty impressive. On to our next question. What is a book that you could recommend that you've read that has given you a paradigm shift?
I don't know what kind of paradigm shift, but it's always stuck with me, is The Count of Monte Cristo.
Really?
So just a guy who was cunning and thoughtful and turned lemons into lemonade, and people, he didn't have to really take any revenge. Building wealth and living well was his best revenge, and people came to their own demise at the end. He didn't have to do anything to make it happen. It just happened. Huh. So it was a little bit of just living well and showing up and being present, and also waiting for, I don't know if you know that story, but it's a very long book. It's 1,300 pages, so good luck.
It's a fictional story.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting, because most of the people that I ask this question to, I think everyone except for you has given, like, there's autobiographies and there's these business books and there's great, but you know what? That's incredible, because it just shows you that the power of the mind is that that's why I asked this question, not just what's your favorite book, because, everyone can say whatever they want. But here I like to understand like how everyone thinks differently, right? And the paradigm shift is, what does that even mean? You're reading all of a sudden, like something's causing you to totally shift the way that you think, see things from a totally different angle that you would have never seen things before from. So I think it's incredible power of writing in general is that, an author, and especially in a fiction, that you can do whatever you want with that.
Yeah.
And
yeah. No.
and imagination.
And that's the thing. I could tell you How to Win Friends and Influence People,
right,
which is another book I love or whatever. But was it really a paradigm shift? No. One of the things I think I just, when you're in business and when you're in business for a long time and when you deal with a lot of people and sometimes business deals go wrong. And this is why for me, Count of Monte Cristo is you just want to get revenge so badly, right? I can't believe I just got screwed over like that. Maybe you haven't had that experience. I definitely have. So, but I focus on that, and his focus, at the end of the day, was mostly living a great life. Now, he had his just desserts at the end of that book, but really his focus was, how do I live the greatest, most wealthy life, both happiness and gratitude and graciousness, and a lot of people are going to say I didn't get that out of the book at all, but I did.
Well, that's amazing.
The best revenge is living a good life.
I totally agree with that. That's a beautiful concept. So with that, we're going to move to our last and final question, which is, what does success mean to you?
At the end of the day, I think success is really coming to terms with okay, how can I live the best and most fulfilling life that I can live, whatever that means to you. It's different for different people. I don't get a lot of pleasure in handbags and fancy shoes, but I do get a lot of pleasure in traveling and doing that kind of thing. And I do think there's a level of money that all of that requires. I get a lot of pleasure in giving money away. I give a good part of my income away to various charitable pursuits, and just really, I kind of work a lot and hard. And the most important thing is spending time with my kids. So, it's all of those things combined to make the most fulfilling life possible.
Right. And you've got this Facebook group that you just started, right?
Oh, did you see? Oh, about Last Life Ever? Yeah, I love it.
So I was just thinking about that as you were saying, this is what is, how you're describing what success means to you, and doing those things and just taking the advantage of the time that you have. And, that just jumped out at me because it sounds like that's very much aligned with what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's just, if anybody who wants to join that group, it's just fun. There's nothing for sale. There's no real agenda, but it's just, we had a whole different, we planned it for 6 months pre-COVID. And then the day we launched Last Life Ever was the day we went on lockdown in the United States. It was such a bad launch. It was horrible. We're supposed to be travel the world and go out and volunteer and be with your community, but do it in your house. So that was basically what, ended up happening. So now we have a lot of fun in that group. Right now we're doing brackets. We do this because we have nothing better to do at this point, right? So we have brackets right now, and the brackets are, what's the best power ballad of all time? It's just complete nonsense. So if you want to come and have some good, clean, nonsensical fun, come on over to Last Life Ever and we can all chat.
That's awesome. That's a lot of fun. Maybe one day when we all get out of this, if we ever get out of this, we will, once again, travel the world and share our experiences with you in that group. But in the meantime, check it out, because sounds like a lot of fun. And it has been, quite a lot of fun just talking with you, Jillian. So I appreciate you coming out and taking your time with us.
Thank you.
And where can our listeners find you besides for Last Life Ever?
Yeah, no. You know what? Also, we have a Crowdfunding Lawyers private Facebook group. That's the first place I'd recommend, because there's 3 attorneys on there and then a couple of other of our employees, and we can be super interactive. So I could send you to the website all day long, but I'm not going to interact with you through the website, but I will interact with you through the Facebook group. So it's Crowdfunding Lawyers, private Facebook group. You can't miss it. We'll let you in. We don't have a lot of hard questions or a lot of rules. If I find you spam in the group, I'll kick you out. It's that simple.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Jillian. It's been a pleasure again, once again. I appreciate your time. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us. And I hope you got a lot of value out of this. And remember, the best advice only comes when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.